we suggest watching the entire video and reserving judgment until the end. February 4th, 2004. Pentagon kills LifeLog project. Now forgotten, LifeLog was dreamed up by DARPA, an agency inside the Department of Defense. Documents show LifeLog's goal was to collect data on everywhere a person goes and everything they see, say, and do. Information was going to be aggregated in a timeline. LifeLog would then identify patterns to understand your routines and interests. At the same time, DARPA's Information Awareness Office, and yes, that was their seal, was working on a program called Total Information Awareness. The ACLU called this the closest thing to a true Big Brother because it sought to be a virtual dragnet by collecting credit card purchases, browsing history, fingerprints, and even DNA. Because of backlash, Congress cut all funding in late 2003. There were concerns LifeLog was connected, since both were being built by DARPA. Officials denied this, saying it would not be used for surveillance. They instead wanted to use the data to build an artificial intelligence capable of human thought. But in early 2004, something curious happened. LifeLog was suddenly canceled. Experts at the time suggested the agency was gun-shy after criticism over TIA. A source, though, speculated the project would continue under a less public title. Strangely, the same day this news broke, Facebook launched. We're a new channel covering declassified government files. Subscribe to join us. The exact date appears to be a coincidence. Though it was published on February 4th, 2004, the same day the Facebook was started, DARPA actually canceled LifeLog in late January. And at the time, sites like Friendster and MySpace had already emerged. Could defense insiders have thought it would be easier to let private industry develop LifeLog-like systems? And does the law today let them request user data for programs similar to Total Information Awareness? This is what we'll explore in this video. Our story starts with the little-known venture capital firm in-q-tel. It's funded by the CIA, but legally separate from the agency. It backs some companies that mine and surveil social media and invest taxpayer money in technologies that partners like the CIA, NSA, and FBI find useful. In 2016, journalists discovered the firm invested in Geophedia. It collects geotagged social media messages and maps them. Geophedia marketing slides once referred to unions and activists as overt threats and offered curation of social media posts to law enforcement. Once the ACLU revealed this program, Facebook and Twitter cut off access to user data. Now, we looked through every document on Facebook's origins. There is no direct connection between intelligence community funding and the social media giant. But there are a few indirect things worth mentioning. Facebook's Series A funding was led by Excel, who had a partner that sat on the board of BBN Technologies, with the first CEO of in-q-tel. BBN has a long history of developing projects for DARPA. Facebook's Series B was led by Greylock Partners, where a key partner at the time still sits on in-q-tel's board of trustees. Could this just be a coincidence, or cherry-picking connections? It's possible. The VC world is small, and there's bound to be some crossover between government and Silicon Valley. There are a few other coincidences, too. In 2003, LifeLog's proposal spent paragraphs discussing a new episodic memory feature called the timeline. 8 years later, Facebook launched a feature of the same name. Its goal was to show highlights from a person's entire life. DARPA once wrote timeline displays would enhance the user interface of LifeLog. To play devil's advocate, though, what else would you call the feature? Timeline is a pretty generic name. There's more, though. 4 years ago, the former head of DARPA from the late 2000s went to work at Facebook's mysterious Building 8. There, they developed Portal, the video calling device able to track people when they enter a room. The division, self-proclaiming itself a skunkworks, also worked on haptic and even telepathic control. Funny enough, LifeLog described something similar 17 years ago. Quote, "Visual, oral, and possibly even haptic sensors capture what the user sees, hears, and feels. GPS, inertial sensors capture the user's orientation. LifeLog also captures transactions from email, calendar, instant messaging, voice transactions can be captured through recording of phone calls. So maybe this is all just one big coincidence. Or maybe DARPA was just ahead of its time and forecasted industry trends. But there's another piece of the story here, and it suggests elements of the intelligence community might have been interested in Facebook regardless of whether or not its creators were aware. Remember the Orwellian Total Information Awareness System? It was defunded in 2003, but seems to have continued secretly. Journalist Shane Harris, recently nominated for a Pulitzer, told NBC what happened next. Quote, TIA would be defunded, but all the money would be moved over to the classified side, the black budget. It was disbanded in name, given new cover names, and almost all of them were shifted over to the management control of the NSA. Enter PRISM. This program remains top secret, and its exact origin isn't declassified. But we do know it exists after The Guardian's 2013 report revealing PRISM collected user data from 9 internet companies, including Facebook, Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft. The initial report claimed PRISM had direct access to servers of these firms, but it has since been clarified the slides released by Edward Snowden may have described goals for the program and not what happened in reality. Mark Zuckerberg personally responded, calling it outrageous, saying Facebook had never been a part of any government program to give direct access to its servers. He admitted, though, when governments ask Facebook for data, we only provide the information if it is required by law. Others, like Google, said something similar. There's no backdoor, but it does have to disclose user data in accordance with the law. What exactly is this law? It has to do with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA. It became law in 1978 in an attempt to provide judicial oversight for the government's surveillance of individuals within the U.S. But a specific amendment, Section 702, allows Americans' data to sometimes get swept up in collection. Files obtained by The Guardian in 2013 showed FISA judges signed off on broad orders that allow the NSA to use information inadvertently collected from U.S. communications, without a warrant. An NSA analyst has a target individual they're monitoring. They use IP addresses, statements made by the target, and information from other agencies to determine if the person is inside the United States. If they are, the data must be destroyed. But when the target has no IP address, the person is assumed to be outside of the U.S. Analysts are even able to look at your messages and listen to phone calls to establish if you're in the U.S. The documents have since been taken down from The Guardian's website, but their reporting is still online. In some circumstances, the NSA may be unable to filter U.S. communications from non-U.S. ones. The law allows the agency to keep that data for up to 5 years. And even if a communication is discovered to be inside the U.S., the NSA can appeal to keep the information if it's significant foreign intel, evidence of a crime, encrypted, or pertains to a threat of serious harm. Communications between U.S. citizens and someone outside the U.S. can also be kept. So, this is the legal framework social media companies have to respond to if they are asked. They have no choice. Remember, when Zuckerberg responded to the PRISM story, he said there was no direct bulk access, but that requests happen on a case-by-case basis. He adds, "We strongly encourage all governments to be much more transparent about all programs aimed at keeping the public safe." And in a way, he had a right to be angry. Facebook and others have no choice in how to respond to Section 702. And if the request follows one of several stipulations that allow U.S. communications to be included in an NSA collection, it's out of the company's hands. The New York Times reported in 2013 that industry insiders told them there was no backdoor into Facebook servers. Rather, they were asked to erect a locked mailbox and give the government the key. This secure digital portal was then used to hand off the data requested by the government. The story also revealed company lawyers review each FISA request, and nothing is sent automatically. So, as you can see, the picture here is complex. It's too simplistic to suggest any social media company was created by an intelligence agency. But could the principles of LifeLog have guided early development of the industry? Given the several coincidences here, it's possible. Could the intelligence community have recognized the surveillance potential of social media networks early on because it had already explored total information awareness in 2003? It's reasonable to ask. The disclosure of PRISM tells us intelligence agencies do collect user data even if social media operators don't want them to. And in-q-tel backed investments suggest law enforcement is interested in analyzing social media behavior. And one might argue, why shouldn't they? Within limits, it may be reasonable for police to analyze crowds. But with predictive analytics, it's a slippery slope. And what's missing here is an open discussion between governments, their citizens, and social media companies. The fact that these programs are often disclosed only after journalists share them is troubling. And the fact that some social media companies only respond to privacy concerns after issues leak, well, that's not great. We also want to add, DARPA has built technology that's benefited humanity. But when a program is squashed due to public backlash, only to be continued covertly, that's a problem for democracy. We hope Silicon Valley and government leaders see this video because we really should have a discourse about how much privacy we are willing to give up for safety. Share this with your friends and family. Let us know your opinion in the comments. And a special thank you to our Patreon supporters, including Excalibur. Without you guys, this would not be possible. If you enjoy our channel and want to support our production of one episode a week, join us on Patreon. It really helps us continue to do this. Thank you, and see you next time.